We are now streaming. I'm gonna drop this link in a couple. Actually, I'll drop the link in chat, and then anybody wants to post it somewhere.
Okay.
There it is.
I need to post your link. I just linked to your channel. Oops. Live.
It's all good. There it is.
The RoseMulet. Yeah.
Yeah, can you link my channel too?
Yeah,
I could always use some more subs. Okay, I mean, I'm probably not gonna post another video until like 2023.
Wow, that's a long time.
Actually, no, November. Probably like November. November's not that long for now.
America first and Femboys. Okay, let me find your. I have to figure out how to open this. Okay. Oh my god, you have the femme Astel hilarious. Okay, and then Rose, I'm gonna find your channel and put it to
YouTube.com/c/RoseMulet.
RoseMulet.
But test the link to make sure it works.
I'm just going to it so that way it works. Yeah, there it is. One word, RoseMulet. Okay, I've tweeted it. We can start whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, we're streaming. It should be people rolling in soon, and I guess we can get into the first topic. Gami, you are the moderator, which means that feel free to announce.
So we're starting with, for background, me, Sinthe, and RoseMulet, and a few others were talking about immigration and femboys in a voice call a few minutes ago. And so we've decided to debate on stream America first and femboys, and we're going to go with America first / open borders first. The question I'm going to ask you both, but I'll start with Sinthe, and then we'll go over to Rose. Actually, who wants to go first? Do we have a preference? Would Rose like to go first?
Rose, would you like to?
I don't care, honestly.
Okay.
Going second sounds cool.
Okay, then it's up to you guys, but I'll read it. Do we have a moral obligation to allow people from other nations to join our country as citizens, immigrants, or refugees? Or refugees, including some fleeing from terrorism, theocracies, and oppressive and tyrannical regimes. Why or why not? Additionally, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Does the influx of immigration pose a threat to any races, ethnicities, cultural values, or any other things? Are people being systematically replaced by immigration? And is that a good or bad thing if so? And
wait, why is the video unlisted?
It's probably just live streaming. Let me go fix that.
Yeah, okay, sorry. You shouldn't have it unlisted. That's why I'm not watching it.
So true.
Definitively say is that they have less turnover rates, which can.
We're going to go live screen now, and I'll drop it in
And tell me if I need to repeat the intro, because I can do that.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
Just a second. It is now.
Video listed. Say it's not just.
It is now public. Yeah, that's so true. Okay. If you want to go ahead and repeat the intro, Gami, that would be good. Thanks.
So me, RoseMulet, and our home debater Sinthe were in a voice call about an hour ago talking about America first / open borders and femboys. RoseMulet opposes both open borders and femboys, and so we've decided to have a formal debate on it. We're gonna have two separate topics. We'll start with America first and open borders, and then we'll move to femboys once we're done with that, and we can go anywhere else after that if the two people like. And the question I'm gonna pose first is, do we have a moral obligation to allow people from other nations to join our country as citizens, immigrants, and/or refugees, including some even fleeing from terrorism, theocracies, and oppressive and tyrannical regimes? Additionally, is the Great Replacement theory have any validity to it, and if so, is that a bad thing? The Great Replacement posits that large-scale immigration is responsible for the destruction of various Western cultural values.
All right.
And I will pass it over to Sinthe.
Sure.
Statement.
So I absolutely do think we have a moral obligation, not just to our own citizens, but to the people from other countries as well. That both includes immigration. It also includes, in terms of our foreign policy, we have to think about the lives of these other people as well, not just what benefits us. I know Rose, on the other hand, doesn't think that people from outside this country have moral value, right? She thinks that the government's actions should specifically be decided based on the policy of what is good for this country and nothing else, right? That's her position. I think this is a fundamentally flawed position. I think there's no solid ethical grounding for it. I think it's on a shoddy meta-ethical framework. I think that there's no way in which Rose can actually substantiate this point, and I think she's going to have awful bullets to bite.
Wow, way to speak about my position before I even get a chance to talk.
Didn't we just talk about them?
Before we end your opening statement, Synth, how do you feel about America First? Do you support it or oppose it? And what is America First?
Sure. America First is I think it was Pat Buchanan, I think, who coined the phrase, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think America First is this sort of like this idea that we should be putting our country before all others to the extent of not even morally valuing the country, the lives and citizens of the citizens of other countries. It's like almost an extreme ethical position.
Okay.
You're glitching out on my end, Gami. Is that the same for you, Rose?
Same here. I didn't hear. Oh, I'm glitching out too?
No, I'm asking you. Is it the same for you? Can you also? Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Is he responsible for the current America First movement? Like, is he a leader in it, or is it someone else?
No. Right now, the current leader in the America First movement would be Nick Fuentes, right? This is the person who's sort of like pioneering it. And to some extent, right, you could say that people like Donald Trump are like leader figures in the America First movement, though you wouldn't really consider them like part of that movement, I think, to most people.
Okay, and then Rose, I guess it's over to you unless Synth has anything else to say.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say before I go, or do you want me? Is it my turn to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I have a few points to get to because wow. First of all, where do I even begin? First of all, okay, I think it's morally reprehensible to basically funding other countries when we have people starving in this country. If we have a single person homeless on the street, dying of poverty, struggling to make ends meet, inflation the highest it's ever been, the American people need help. And because this is the United States of America, I tend to think that our money should be going to helping the citizens of America. And if we can't even take care of our own citizens, how are we supposed to take care of anybody else? Right? I mean, I see people, use this logic for relationships for whatever reason, but when it's countries, it's a big no-no. And it's like, oh, what about these other countries? Well, guess what? Big shocker. I think other countries are responsible for their own governments. For the longest time, the U.S. has been seen as like, oh, we've got, we're just going to put our own opinions and we're going to fund these other countries. And a lot of times it ended up bad for them. But even if it ended up good for them, it's not our problem. And I'm tired of this expectation. The U.S. no longer can or should be, hold this position in the world space. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's moral. No one else is expected to. And we got our own problems that we have to fix. And we need to prioritize this. Now, I know what people are going to say. This sounds a lot like America First. This sounds a lot like Nick Fuentes. I do not like Nick Fuentes, personally. I think he's a terrible person. I don't agree with his politics. I don't even, to be fair, I don't even like the phrase America First. However, I guess what I'm saying does align with that specific view. And I would say, look at Ukraine, right? I would say that that's $40 billion. That a lot of money could have very easily gone to people in this country, and it could have done a ton. I mean, $40 billion, that's like, you have 300 million people in this country. That could feed people for like several months, every homeless person in this country. Just for that one thing alone, think about all the useless money we spend in military. Like, why are we expected to do that? We build so many tanks, we build so many nukes that we don't need, that are a waste of space. And it's like, if we could fund our budget better and put our priorities, maybe, just maybe, if we had all of our needs met, we didn't have any homelessness, people lived a decent life, then maybe I'd be more willing to entertain the idea that we should help other countries. Maybe that's really the big issue here. But it's not like, I know people are going to be like, oh, well, you don't care about like these third world countries. You don't care, Rose. It's not that I don't care. It's just I live in our country, and I think we need to focus on our country, and that's what we need to focus on. So yeah. Sorry, that was a long statement.
Well,
wait? I have another question for part of the opening statement. Does the Great Replacement, the theory that a group of elites, be it politicians, media figures, do you believe a group of them are conspiring and allowing such a degree of illegal immigration that we are seeing native populations die out from foreign-borns?
I do not believe that there is this great conspiracy theory to get rid of all the white people from the like the government conspiracy. I do think that there's like a credence of truth in the sense that there are people in this country, currently a minority, but there are people in this country, you know, especially people on Twitter who would love to see white people die out, who would praise seeing white people die out. I don't think that that's most people though. I think like 90
Okay.
something percent of people, I think, to claim that the great replacement theory is like systemic or that it's like this big thing or that the government's behind it, it's silly, right? I mean, yeah, we're seeing like more black people in advertisements. Okay, that's true. And I would say maybe it's like an overcorrection from the days where it's like we don't have like back in the days, like we didn't have enough representation of people of other races. That was absolutely a problem. I think now if you look at the proportion of the population in this country, you're seeing that I think oftentimes people are like afraid, like if there's too many white people, they're going to get canceled. So they take the opposite approach. I think that there's some truth there. I don't believe the great replacement theory. But that being said, I'm sympathetic to people who are afraid that, like, you know, I mean, this is the country that they've lived in. I don't think that like a bunch of like people of different races being in this country is going to change really anything about the country. That being said, with like some extremists in this country, if those people get power, I truly do believe that it doesn't. I just want to clarify. I'm sorry for going on for such a long time.
You're
But
good.
like, okay, so when it comes to racism, I don't think that like white people or black people are like any more racist like by nature or biology. It just so happens to be that like in this country or whatever, like white people just happen to have the power. But like if black people were to have the power and they were to be like a minority of white people, they would be just as racist to us as we were to them. Absolutely. So it's like if there was a situation where white people were the minority and it would be called like racist to like I absolutely could see that being a thing. I don't think that that's
Is there a way we can we can move into cross-ex?
move to
Into
what?
Cross-examination, like we're
Oh, okay,
yeah.
cross-exam, sure. But I guess just before we do that, Rose, yes or no, is the declining birth rates of natives and increasing of immigrants a thing for concern? Just a simple yes or no will suffice.
I hate doing just yes.
Of course
Okay, you
not.
don't have to answer. We can go on to
No,
cross-exam.
I want
Okay.
I want to answer though.
Okay,
I-
You just want to answer 8 hours.
No more than two sentences.
okay, wait, let me think about this. How I want to I have to be brief about this. I have to think. I think that the declining birth rates of people in this country is a problem. We need to work to fix that, and I prefer there not to be immigration. However, I don't believe that that's like this horrible, like racist, like conspiracy. I think that's just the natural habits of people in this country, and
There we go.
I think that should be reversed.
That's two. That's two. That's like two. And what is like a triple compound sentence? Okay, we can get to the cross-sex. I'm begging you.
We're going to cross-exam.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd love to jump in, right? Rose, you said
Okay.
it's not that I don't care, is what you said, Rose, in your opening statement, but it is that you don't care. When asked if it was the case that like an asteroid would strike China, right, and the only thing we had to do to stop this was like not move the minimum wage up by $1, you said that would be you said it would be immoral to not move the minimum wage up by $1. You said instead we should let an asteroid hit China, right? You said all people in China should die. You'd rather kill off all of China than do something that harms Americans just a little bit, right? So it is that you do not care, right? So it's morally reprehensible that we have people starving in this country to put any money towards others, right? It would be reprehensible to waste money on other countries while we have people starving in this one. But there are countries with people starving all around the globe, and some of them are starving for easier reasons to solve than others, right? Some countries are starving because they don't have vitamin A supplements, whereas people in the U.S. are starving because they're food insecure, right? It's very hard to solve food insecurity. It's very easy to pay 30 cents for vitamin A supplement.
Okay, well, what I said, and you're by the way, you're quoting a conversation that we had in private, and I wish people had the context for this, but they don't. But whatever. So the point is what I said, if I can recall correctly, because this was like a few hours ago, is essentially I don't like these hypotheticals, and I really don't. I don't think it's really realistic. But in this hypothetical scenario, right? I was like, well, okay, China has like a lot of money, so why does the U.S. need to aid? Like China has like billions, trillions of dollars that they could do to help. And like worst case scenario, they just like flee to like somewhere else if they need to, like the area that's affected. Like there's things that they can do. And I don't like again, I mean, I feel like this is like you put me in like a hypothetical situation that would not be like a realistic, basically to be like, And I think what I said is, if there was a situation that for whatever reason, the only way, like if we raise the minimum wage from like $15 to $20 and that caused everyone in China to die, then I said, well, yeah, then that would like be immoral. But like in a realistic scenario,
No, you
that would
didn't.
never happen.
Yeah, you actually said it would be immoral for us not to raise the minimum wage and kill off all the Chinese. That's what you said was immoral. Now you're rolling it back because you understand that was an awful position, right? I understand that, right? But I understand you're saying it's a private conversation, right? You don't want it aired publicly, but the private conversation was in a group of like 20 other people who also saw it, right?
It's recorded. I wish this was.
It doesn't have to be. We had 20 other people who were there to watch it. But Rose, I want to ask you a question really fast, really super quick question, right? I want to ask you if it's the case that we have to choose between giving $3,000 right to somebody to solve like food insecurity for maybe like 6 months, right? Or we can give somebody a deworming medication over in the third world and make sure they don't die of some intestinal worm. What do you think of which one of those two options do you think is a better option? 30 cents for the intestinal deworming or the $3,000 for 6 months of food here in the U.S.?
Okay, so first of all, before I answer that, I just want to clarify what I said because I don't want these misconceptions to stay because I want to clarify what I said. I said that in the specific scenario, if only raising the price of like basically increasing the minimum wage, if that specifically like killed people in China, then that would be immoral. But I said in every other situation, it wouldn't be our responsibility. So that is what I said. So I feel like there's a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of what I said there. So
I think you're just being dishonest, but it's okay.
no, I'm not.
I want you to.
Swear to God, you
Okay.
too.
Yes, a lot of people are there. It's okay. Since the audience don't have context, right? Since you can't prove it, I'm gonna throw that over to you. I'm not gonna even respond to that, right? We'll just focus directly on this one point, this right here that you said here. Hold on. Yeah, I'm glad that you think your statements are shitty, right? That's strange to me. But I want to talk about the thing you just said here live that people can hear, right? Which is that you think it's morally reprehensible to put the money towards people, to put some money towards other people in other countries when we have people starving here. I'm telling you, 30 cents can save people in other countries. That's not the same in the U.S. 30 cents cannot save someone in the U.S.
Oh my God. So I understand. So can you repeat? So like, what are we comparing here? Because it's like you have this very specific situation, like how we're helping this one person versus
No,
one person.
it's not. No, these are not one specific situation, RoseMulet. These are like a large-scale systemic issue in terms of people dying because they don't have malaria nets, because they don't have deworming medication, because they don't have vitamin A supplements, right? These are huge things in the third world, and these are cheap solutions. A malaria net's $2.50, right? Vitamin A supplements and deworming medication are about 30 cents a pop, right? That's really, really, really cheap. We can't use $2.50 or 30 cents to save the lives of people in the U.S. That's not an option we have. It's life or death over there. It's not so much over here.
Right, and I'm aware. And that's the thing is like I'm not denying that there's these awful things happening in these other countries, and I absolutely feel sympathy for that. However, it's also undeniable that there's people starving in this country. There's people in this country who desperately need our support. So obviously, there's people in other third world countries who are obviously going to have it worse. Well, we run into a situation where it's like, what do you expect the U.S. to do? Constantly drain all of our money trying to fix all of the poverty in Africa? It's like if we do that at that point, then do we expect like the United States to be like, oh, your life is going to get drastically worse because we're draining all of our money to these third world countries? It's like
their lives don't get drastically worse, Rose. It's just not true, right? When we take our money and we spend it over there, the return on investment. That's just not how money works, Rose. There's something called return on investment. You could spend your money and make more money later. This isn't a zero-sum game. When we take our money and we spend it on places like Africa, they have better they have higher economic development. Those people make a lot more money during their lifetime. It's a lot more likely to lead to things like Boko Haram sweeping through and making the qualities of lives for these people miserable, and then having this huge scale amount of Islamic terrorism in the region, right? If you want good for America, what you have to do is you have to interact with other countries and you have to do things to lift them up and bring them out of poverty now. Otherwise, you have problems long term.
okay, but like if it Like, first of all, I don't even know if it would work because we've interfered with a lot of countries, and let's just say we do not have a good track record. I mean, there's countless examples of the U.S. saying we're going to help, we're going to make things better, and then we make it worse.
Can you give me a single time where Can you give me a single time where a deworming charity, a malaria net charity, right, or a vitamin A supplement charity, or any effective altruist charity, any of them, just a single one? Can you give me a single example of one that you think has done a bad job?
So first of all, I just want to preface this by saying I am not super duper uber educated about like every single charity ever. Okay,
I'm asking for one, not all of them, just one.
I think that charities typically don't help people. I wish I could point to certain examples. I mean, I could use Google if you really wanted me to.
Do it.
I would have to sit down, like watch a few videos, do some research, because like I don't feel comfortable like making an outright statement about any specific case. I would just say that from what I know, there's been a lot of cases where charities will try to help people, and then people wonder what happened with that money, or that money didn't go to the right uses, or the people behind the organization.
Name a single effective altruist charity which that's happened. You don't have to name all of them. Just name one example of an effective altruist charity that's happened to. Just one that you think is the one that you think has exhibited any malpractice whatsoever.
I mean, can you name me one that hasn't?
Yes. Yeah. Any one on the Maximum Impact Fund. Helen Keller International.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
You don't know what
I've heard of that before.
Do you?
Who
Like,
Helen Keller is?
I know who Helen Keller is. Okay, I'm just letting you know. I don't read books all day. That is not my thing. Okay.
Okay. Look.
I want you to know that.
I read visual novels.
On this call is because a bunch of people were like, "Rose, come on," and it's like, okay,
It's okay, Rose. It's okay, right? You don't have to read a bunch of like Peter Singer or something to come have a discussion on charity, right? But the issue is you're making claims. No. You don't have to read a book. You don't have to cite me a book, right? You're making a claim. I just want evidence of it, right? Whatever evidence you use to come to that decision, I want you to just say it out loud. It doesn't have to be a book.
I genuinely do not remember. I remember seeing things about it. If I remembered, I would tell you. I don't want to say anything and then have it be like that not be the case because I could misremember something. I don't remember.
Okay, so you can't really remember your source for it. You're not really super sure or certain that the source even said what you really think it says, I think, right? I don't see a good reason why it's the case that we should be hyper skeptical of these charities doing great work in the third world because of the fact that, like, maybe you kind of vaguely remember some source somewhere that might have said something bad about them. I think that seems that's highly stipulative, right? It's a bad idea when this is life or death for other people to play these like very stipulative games.
And maybe this is my fault, I don't know. If I knew what we were talking about and I had like this assignment, it's like, okay, we're gonna talk about this. Come up with these sources. I could spend like a few hours finding these sources for you. I could. If I knew ahead of time this was going to happen, but I didn't, okay? So I don't have this plan. I can just say, like, and this is stupid, because if, like, we're having the debate about who's read the most books, I don't think that's the debate we're having.
I'm not saying I've read more. I've never cited a single book during this entire discussion. There's 0 books cited.
So why are you trying to get me to,
give evidence for your beliefs? Because we're having a discussion. You made a claim.
Can we just like move on from this and like have an actual conversation and like?
That's what we're doing. We're debating each other. I'm asking you for evidence for your position.
We were having a good thing going, and then you just kind of like stopped it in its tracks. I kind of just want to like leave the call right now because it's just
Rose,
like dumb.
No.
I'll be nice, all right? I don't want to make you upset.
I think what Sinthe is asking is we just want to see some evidence of your claims. Like, do you have any examples of fraudulent charities in the third world?
It would take me a long time to find a specific example that I'd be comfortable enough knowing enough about. Like I said, I don't research a bunch in my time. That's just not what I do.
I guess the question Sinthe would probably
pose. If I was going into this, then I would have.
The question Sinthe would probably pose to that is. The question Sinthe would probably pose to that is, then how can you make the statement that we can't trust them if you don't have any evidence that you can show us?
Why should I trust you? I mean, this is like...
Because I have evidence I can show you.
Moderator, you should trust me, because I'm just asking questions.
Legitimately speaking, if we don't move on from this, I'm leaving the call.
Okay,
Okay, we can move on.
What do you want
Like,
to talk about? Do you want
I just
talk
want to
about...
continue having this conversation
Okay.
and not be on this stupid fucking dumbass roadblock. We
Okay.
can continue to have like a fucking conversation.
What do you want to talk about, Rose?
I don't even remember what we were talking about because
We were
like
talking about immigration and America first, and if open borders are good or not.
Yeah. And if we should, like, how we balance out weighing our own the morals of our own citizens, right, and the values of our own citizens, right, and how we value their lives versus the lives of others.
And the Great Replacement.
oh my god, I remember how this started because I literally was like, we don't. I think what I said was something, and I guess this is recorded, so you'll know, but I could be wrong. But what I remember me saying was like, and it's like we don't even know that it'll work. Like I think that's what I said. Like we don't even know.
I could tell you.
Okay, what did I say?
What you said was it's morally reprehensible when we have people starving in this country to put any of our money towards others. That's what you said.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the specific last thing I said before this like conversation got super derailed. I was saying like we don't even know for sure if it works, but even if it did work, even if okay, this is where I was going. This is why I'm so fucking frustrated because I was about to make this point, and then you stop me, and you're not letting me make my point, and now I can't even have the conversation
Go ahead.
that I was like. So let's just say, right? Even if it doesn't work, or sorry, even if it does work, right? Like let's say that Africa is like this amazing developed country because we spend billions or trillions of dollars making that happen, right? Even if that's the case, and this is really the point that I was gonna fucking get to, like this other stuff is irrelevant. You'll see. So even if that happens, that's good for Africa, but how is that good for the United States, right? You're taking money away that could have gone to the American citizens, and you're putting that money away from us. You're spending large amounts of money on something that I refuse to see how this helps Americans. And because this is America, what's important is...
If you'd like, I could answer your question. I could just tell you how it helps Americans, right? So,
Yeah, tell me.
if you destabilize regions in Africa, right? If you destabilize regions in Africa where Boko Haram is rolling around, like doing terrible things in these regions, you have an increase in Islamic terror in the region. This causes an increase in Islamic terror globally, right? It causes the Islamic terror groups in other places to feel more empowered, more as though like the world is shifting in the direction of Islamism in terms of Sharia, right? It feels like a big jihad is coming, right? As these larger groups gain more and more power. If you're in one of these groups, that's how it feels, right? So if it's the case that we have one region we have this massive increase in Islamic terrorism in the region, then you see that in other regions, and that ends up harming us. We see things like 9/11, right, when that happens. We see things that don't necessarily seem like they're going to be bad at first, end up being bad down the line, right? The same way that we saw things that we did to combat the Soviets, right, during the Soviet-Afghan war, ended up being bad down the line for us. We have to think not just short term, but long term for how we deal with conflicts in these regions.
Okay.
So that's why it harms America, right? Okay.
So first of all, ISIS, not a fan, right? But why are you so against? Do you hate Islamic people? Why are you so against Islamic people rising to power?
I'm against Boko Haram. Are you?
No,
You're anti-ISIS, right? But are we both still anti-Boko Haram too?
Oh, I'm anti-ISIS. I just like are you?
But are you anti-Boko Haram?
Because anyway, so I think if we develop these countries,
I have an issue. So I have an issue with religious fundamentalism in general. I don't have an issue with religion, right? Any of them. I just have an issue with fundamentalism. And I think that when you see Boko Haram, you see fundamentalist terrorism. I think that's an issue. I think killing women and girls because they want to go to school, I don't think it's a good thing.
I agree.
I think legalizing Western education is a bad thing.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think that. I think every time the U.S. has tried to interfere and stop that, I don't think it's gone well, but whatever. I feel like if we develop...
That's because we've done it with war. That's because we haven't done it the right way. We haven't built these countries up economically. We've broken them down economically.
Yeah, socialism will work this time, I promise.
This isn't even socialism. This is just charity. Do you think that charity is socialism?
I'm actually like against, like I go to fast food restaurants and like, oh my god, you need to round the chains and help me starving kids. It's like, can you not try to guilt trip me? Like
someone asked.
Already high. It's like, it's insane. Like the way that it's like, I don't care about these corporations. Like if you care so much, these fucking billion-dollar corporations, donate yourself. Don't ask average Americans to do so.
Rose, that's what we're talking about. I asked you, do you think that charities are socialism? You didn't answer that question.
if it's socialism or not. I'm actually like anti. Here's the thing. I think charities in theory would be fine if like people on their own accord decided that that's what they wanted to do. However, I would say like even if like let's say a bunch of billionaires sat down and decided, wow, we need to help these poor people. It's like, okay, why are they helping these poor people in these other countries when they could be helping people in our country? I would still think that. It's like it's weird because it's like there's always going to be someone who's like more victimized than you. It's always going to be. It's like literally oppression Olympics. It's like, oh, the poor people in this country take a back seat. You're not as oppressed as the people in.
Let's not go off on a tangent, right? Let's focus. Right? So I think we could both agree that it's not super reasonable to call charities socialism, right? If people want to give their money to charities, that seems fine, and putting that money towards charities in the third world is the best place for them, right? If we want to talk about how to if you want to have an effective charity, you don't put it towards money here, right? You put it towards money in the third world. That's effective. If you want, however, to have an effective government action, you can do the exact same thing. The money that you could have put towards programs right here in the U.S., you could benefit the citizens here in the U.S. even more if you just spend it wisely, right? It doesn't have to be a direct benefit. Sometimes benefits are indirect. I mean, we can think about the complex like geopolitics of Boko Haram gaining more power in Africa or something like this, right? Or even simpler, we could just imagine these people have higher incomes now and can spend more on products, and we can trade with more people. That just makes the economy better overall. You have more people trading.
Rose, if oh, sorry, you can finish, and then I have a question for you related to this.
I have two things I want to say real quick. So first of all, I just want to point out I'm very liberal in this regard. I'm very pro policies put in place. I love universal basic income. I love raising minimum wage. I want a utopian society where everyone in our country is living fucking amazingly. We spend all of our country not on the fucking tanks or the warships, not on the fucking billions for Ukraine, just for America. And all Americans live like 1950s style, like where there's not that much of a gap between the rich and the poor. We live a much better.
What about the segregation part? Are we getting rid of that?
Well, not the segregation. I'm talking about like the incomes and the way that we were actually able to afford homes back then. But that's what I'm talking about. I want a society where our social programs are the fucking best in the world, and we can do that if we're not so stupid about being the fucking tank machine of a country that we are, and we stop fucking bombing other countries, and we stop being the world police. And we instead decide, hey, why don't we take this money and enrich the lives of our own fucking citizens? And then I would say that that's what we need to be doing. I'm pro like leftist, even fucking socialist policies to get us there. As long as we give 0 cents to any foreign country until our shit is figured out. The other thing I will say, I think.
Well, before you say the second thing, right, let's talk about this first point, right? Let's go point by point. So this first point is massively issuesome. If we just think about things as like we can give things directly to our own citizens and we don't think about what is the best return on investment for our citizens, there's no way we can have sensible policy. Like I've said several other times, which it seems like you're not addressing, we could do things that are good in those other countries that end up being better for us long term than if we have taken that same amount of money and put it towards stuff here, right? Though that 30 cents over there can do a lot more for us than 30 cents over here can do for us, right? Sometimes interactions between these foreign countries is good for us. Like free trade is a huge aspect of that. If you have this, if you have economies over there booming because of the fact that now people can live higher qualities of lives, that means you have a lot more economies to trade with, like I said earlier, and this means better qualities of lives for Americans too. Globalism is good for all of us.
All right, well, here's the thing, okay? Maybe that's the case that, only like a small percentage of money can really help these other countries. I don't see how it would help the U.S., but whatever. Maybe we disagree on that. The point is, even if that's the case, right, I would say, let's say we get into a point where we have all of our problems made up. Our poverty is solved, our starvation, no one's homeless anymore. If we can solve these problems, then we can give all the fucking money we want to these countries. However, it is morally irreprehensible and disgusting to the people that live here to even spend a single fucking cent on these countries when we're not addressing our own problems in our own roof. That's like
Rose, you've already said that. I want you to address the arguments I made, right? You're just ignoring the points that I'm bringing up and rewinding back to earlier points you've made, right? I understand you made that point. I responded to it. I'll respond to mine.
It's literally like you're in your house, your kids are starving, but you feed this homeless man.
You said that point already, right? I made a point in response to it.
Children that live in your house.
No, it's not to the detriment. Rose, I made a point. You're ignoring it. Rose, you have to pay attention to the points the other person's making. You can't just rewind back to the things you already said, right? Once again, it benefits us to do this. It benefits us in the same way I said earlier. It increases, it makes the economies in this other place boom, and then we can trade with them, and it's better for us, right? It's better for us if we have more trading partners with better economies.
Okay, but how does that fucking benefit the average American?
Because of the fact they have cheaper products and they have higher qualities of lives because more people who are poor are able to get more products for cheaper. You're able to get things that you couldn't get otherwise. It make sense to you?
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
So do you agree with Sinthe now? Do you support the things being argued for?
Here's the thing. I feel like maybe there's some situations where it's like if it's a very cheap investment, and I want to be very particular. If it's like $40 billion, fuck that. Okay. If you spend $10,000 of the government's like $1 trillion thing, and doing so leads to like a 5% cheaper loaf of bread or something as like an example, then that's probably money well spent for the average American, right? There are scenarios where that could happen. The problem is, I feel like on paper that sounds like good advice. I just feel like as what we're seeing in practice right now, I feel like that justification is being used to justify like these things that don't benefit us. Like people say all the time, like, oh, NASA's done all these great things. Like that's why we should spend billions of dollars funding them. It's like, okay, you're pointing to like a handful of things that happened fucking decades ago. And it's like, that doesn't justify like, ooh, look at me. I want to build the giant space thing. I have a bigger rocket than Russia. Ha ha ha. National pride. Like that's not fucking helping the average American citizen. It's like stuff like that. It's like you can justify being like, oh, well, maybe this could help. Maybe this could help the average American if all this happens. And it's like, well, maybe it's not successful. I mean, all these other things go wrong. I just think it's better that we put the money into the people's hands directly, and I think that's a better spending our investment. I think it's fine to take certain small risks if those can lead to actual benefits for the average American, and only if they do. I don't even think that these people making these decisions fucking care about the average American. I really don't think they do. But whatever, maybe they do. I don't know. I would say the best thing to do is to implement these policies. And here's the thing. If we implemented these policies to help the average American, and we did all this, and we did those stuff, perfect. I don't care. The problem is people advocating for that stuff and then not giving a shit about the poor people in America and being like, oh, sorry, poor people in America, you can wait. Poor people in Saudi Arabia, fucking Nigeria, you take my money.
Certainly not the poor people in Saudi Arabia, for the record. They have a very high GDP per capita. Not them.
I just listed like random fucking countries.
She means like
random. Yeah, I know what she's trying to get at, yeah. But you mentioned...
just something I want to pipe in with. Rose, you said $10,000 is about enough. Do you still stand by that?
What? When did I say 10,000 was not enough? I said that.
No,
10,
you said it is. I said 10. You said 10,000 is about the amount you'd be okay with.
Well, that was just like an example. When I say $10,000, I say that $10,000 in regard for like the entire American budget that is spending. We have like trillions of dollars. I'm saying something would have to be like that microscopically small that it really didn't impact anything. If you ever get to a point where it's like this amount of money could actually provide a huge amount of change that's guaranteed, by the way, because if you do it to other countries, it's not fucking guaranteed at all. You're making a gamble, and you're putting like, you know what I'm saying? If you can make that money help at all citizens of America realistically, then it's always just going to be better to put that money into the hands of the poor people. Okay. Which is like none of our policies.
Not always, right?
Fed has $9 trillion, by the way. I just wanted to say that, and 10,000 is 10 to the -7th percent.
Well, that's my point, and it's an example. It would have to be a really small amount, like even if it was like $1 million.
But Rose, before we go there, right? So if it's the case that it's a really small amount, you don't really care that the amount is small, right? Or that it's a really, really small amount. You just care that the benefits outweigh the cost, right? For the average American. You just care that we get more out of it than we put in, compared to the opportunity cost of giving it to poor people directly, right? Your direct giving option, right? Direct cash grants, right, to the average American. I think there are good ways to do UBI. The way you're describing it is not going to be a good one, right? You can't just do it with the defense spending budget. We don't have the money for that with the defense spending budget, right? If you cut it to zero, right, give us no military, complete zeroing out of our defense budget, it would still be the case we wouldn't have enough for UBI. We would still need something like a VAT or some kind of other tax increase, right, to fund something like that. We can't.
I'd be pro for a tax increase.
I am too, right? Especially on richer people. I think that.
Like Yeah, exactly. I'd be fine with that.
But that doesn't mean that it's not also good to take the money that we're getting from a tax increase like this and also put it towards things that are long-term investments for the average Americans, not all of which have to be domestic investments.
Well, hold on. If we're admitting here that we need even more money than the government even has just to implement UBI, let alone the other lots of other things that we need to implement just to improve the lives of basic Americans, that would mean that we don't have the money to be supplying to these foreign countries.
We absolutely do.
No, you're literally.
We absolutely do. Rose, you didn't pay attention. Rose, you just didn't pay attention. I'll explain to you the problem. No, Rose, you just didn't pay attention. I'll explain to you the issue you're making, right? I'm saying we don't have the money for UBI. The programs I'm proposing are extremely cheap. We already have the money necessary for that. You can't get UBI with the existing money we have, right? You just can't get that. It's a no-go. It's not an option, right? However, you can get the policies I'm advocating for. If you want the ones you're advocating for, we can get both of ours by doing a tax increase big enough to supply both of ours with money. That's an option, right? I'm saying mine's doable with the existing amount of money we have. Yours is not, right? Yours is a good policy if we can get taxes up, right? If we do that, I agree we should, then yours is a good policy too, right? The UBI is great. I'm a big fan of UBI. It's just that UBI is not mutually exclusive with the policies I'm proposing.
What do you think the average American is going to benefit more from? Fucking money in their pocket to ensure that they don't starve on the street? Or, oh, let's give this money to a third world country and maybe, just fucking maybe, you'll increase a slightly cheaper product on the grocery store.
That's just not accurate to how the economics work here, right? So it's not the case. It's a lot of money with a slight increase that you might receive in the grocery store. It's a guaranteed increase, right? Statistically guaranteed. There's no chance of this going wrong because of very small amounts of money put toward these countries. We get a lot out of them. It's great for us, right? So considering this, you can say, wouldn't it be better to just give them money directly? But in general, if we're talking about the average American, they're not starving, right? The average American is not starving. The average American is relatively obese, even. It's not the case that starvation is the problem here. Food insecurity is a problem, right? And the way we fix food insecurity, there are Americans who can't pay the rent, right? The average American can afford a $400 emergency, right? But they're making it paycheck to paycheck. It's bad, I agree, right? But they are making it.
That's so little. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's bad.
Inflation rates in like a long time. I mean, the average American is struggling. It's such a problem. We need these drastic things, and I'm sick and tired. I think the American people are tired. We don't want to see 40 billion in Ukraine. We don't want to see funding Afghanistan. We don't want to see all of this shit like the fucking Vietnam. We don't want to see we just want to see, let's fund America. How about that?
So the majority of Americans do, in fact, say we should back Ukraine until Russia entirely withdraws, right? That's what we know currently. It's not the case the average American agrees with you like they think they do, right? The average American is not sick and tired of this. And I think I'm not trying to make a personal jab or anything, but the reason that you're so mistaken on the polls here is because you're just kind of out of touch with the average American. You said yourself you're incredibly wealthy, right? It's not the case that you understand what poor people go through on a day-to-day. They understand that poor people in other countries are poor too, Rose.
Okay, well, first of all, with the Ukraine thing, I don't think we want World War III, and I think that there's a lot of propaganda being put that way. I think social media is literally censoring anybody who has a different opinion, who is even saying, well, actually, let's talk about the fault of Ukraine. Oh, no, the video's banned now. Oh, no. But it's like, the media is just afraid to be like, listen, Ukraine is not pro-LGBT. They're literally trapping trans women in the country, not letting them leave. And that's why I don't like them. I've never liked them for that reason. And that's why I fucking hate Russia too. Don't get me wrong, right? But I'm tired of everyone acting like Ukraine's a saint. And honestly, I don't think they deserve our money, right? I don't want World War III. We do not want Russia and the United States getting in a conflict over this. And also, it's just going to lead to it's leading to increased gas. Rose, you're making an assumption about my positions on Ukraine. I'm correcting you because you said something was factually wrong, right? I'm not correcting you because I support I support some imperialist action by the U.S. in Ukraine or anything insane like that, right? I don't support that, right? All I'm saying is you got something factually wrong. The average American does support backing Ukraine, right? It's just not the case that you have the average person's intentions correct, right? If you want, I can cite you the poll. I'm not making this up.
right? But
I'm not saying that.
I have a question.
I need to look it up.
Sure, I'll give it to you.
If you talk to most Americans, I'm pretty sure most are at least very anti-Putin. They might not support like all the money if they knew, but they support our involvement.
$40 billion. I mean, you know how much that could do to help people here?
That's not the Fed has I think 9 trillion. That's like a
And they want
fraction
to
of
do
9
more.
billion.
They want to send even more. It's insanity.
So here it is. Only 18% oppose withdrawing, or sorry, they oppose the claim that we should back Ukraine until Russian forces withdraw, and 53% support it, which makes it it's a majority of the Americans, right? And only a very, very, very small minority oppose it. That's the source from Reuters. I think Reuters is, I think it's a fine source personally. Maybe you disagree with that.
Can you DM that to me on Discord?
It's in the, it's in Discord. It's in the chat we're in.
Okay, I'll look at that. Just over half of Americans say the U.S. should back Ukraine until Russia withdraws.
But can I ask you a question about your beliefs, right? I want to ask you one important question. Do you have any opposition whatsoever with us? Or maybe I should ask this in a way that's like maybe it's going to be a little bit more, give you more room to like elaborate on your position like you like to do, right? Do you think that it should be the case that we don't let more people enter into this country? Do you think maybe there should be less people entering it?
I would say the only reason I would be against immigration is the fact that we can't even, and that's a stupid thing people say with relationships all the time. It's like, well, you can't be in a relationship unless you know how to take care of yourself first. And it's like, okay, people say that all the time, but meanwhile, it's like, well, I think that the United States shouldn't let anyone in this country until it knows how to take care of its own citizens. You know, we can't even fucking feed our own people. We can't even like have affordable rent. We don't have free healthcare. We don't have UBI. So why the fuck do we think that we can accept these other people? Why don't we take care of our own citizens first and be consistent about these views?
Rose, what do we take care of our own citizens with?
We can let immigrants in. If we did all those things and we can support immigrants, then we can let them in.
Rose, what do we take care of our own citizens with?
With these policies like UBI, like free healthcare, like
we give them, we take care of them with food. We take care of them with water. We take care of them with housing, right? How do you think you get food on the table, water in your glasses, and how do you think you get a roof above your head? People build those, don't they?
Oh my God. Do you think that immigrants are low-wage people? That the immigrants are going to take those low-wage roles in society? Is that why you want them in?
Sorry, did you just ask me, are immigrants generally low-wage workers? Yes, obviously.
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying we have more people to build more houses. I never said anything about low wages. You asked me if it was the case that immigrants are generally low wage. Of course, right? There's nothing to do with my point.
American dream worked for my family.
What are you talking? What are you talking about?
I come from immigrants.
What does that have to do with the argument I just made?
I just find it kind of insulting to think that, like, oh, immigrants are just the people doing your landscaping. They're cleaning your toilets.
I never said landscaping. I said building houses. I said supplying basic human needs. Immigrants do this to the people here, right? If you have more people supplying basic human needs, you have a lot more needs supplied. It's not the case that they're just mouths to feed. They're also the people putting food on the table. So sorry, go ahead, Gami.
No, you're good. Rose, how you said your parents are immigrants? Did they immigrate here legally or? Oh, how did they get here?
So my grandmother owned a business in Cuba, and the government took that away from her. She left the country back when you still could, and my grandfather stole a boat. And fun fact, he was actually childhood friends with Fidel Castro, and he said to him that if he ever returned to the country, he would kill him personally. So that was, yeah, fuck Fidel Castro. He's an evil piece of shit, fucking dictator. When he died, the Cuban people celebrated. I mean, I don't like celebrating people's deaths, but he was an evil person.
But when they got here, my question was more so, did they get like amnesty, or did they come here? Did they have all their papers and stuff when they came here? Or did they have to was it a crime when they crossed the border? Do you think, knowing that you're
immigrated legally? I'm pretty sure they were immigrated legally. Like,
they stole a boat and then just like randomly illegally immigrated the next week.
Well, they got there. Listen, I'd have to ask my parents because I don't. I'm just remembering what they told me. But obviously they got their citizenship. I know that for sure.
Okay. I know Reagan gave his citizenship to a bunch of Cuban immigrants a few decades ago. That might have been that.
again, like this happened like how many years before I was born? I just know like the brief things that my parents told me. So
Mhm.
if I could ask them, I'd let you know. But obviously, I have to do that like a few days from now or like after this
That's
debate.
okay. No, you're good. Um, I
And my
guess.
grandparents were poor. Like they didn't speak English. Like they spoke Spanish. So like they were discriminated against. Like they had struggles. But I remember they were like very against like the welfare system. They didn't want to like, you know what I'm saying? Like they felt like they were very blessed to be a part of this country. And then obviously my parents were like the first people in both of their families. Both of my parents grew up poor, and they were the first people in their families to ever go to college. And they
Do,
did really well for themselves. So
don't
I
you
mean, the
think some of the
American dream is
people?
still alive.
Don't you think some of the people immigrating from like South America or Africa here might have that same goal in mind that they do, or just want to not even have to go to college, but just to make a better life for themselves and their family?
Yeah, and I do, and I think that in an and that's the thing. In an ideal scenario, we should be able to do that. And here's the thing: back in that day, right? Back in like the whatever that decade was, I'm not smart enough to like know my decades or whatever the fuck. Back whenever that was, the United States we were like the best in the world, right? And we treated people really well. I think that today we don't hold that same standard, and I think that we should halt immigration currently until we meet that standard again. And it's the sense of I want immigration in this country. I really do. I think immigration is great, and I'm an example of that, right? I think it can lead to amazing things in this country, and I think the melting pot. That's our whole country was based off of. It's in the
True.
Constitution.
Are there? You
It,
said you want to fully block off immigration. Would be like nowhere, anywhere. Would there just be countries you don't want? Like, would you say no Mexican immigrants, but we can have like highly educated Germans or Nigerians coming in? Is that what you want?
Honestly, I'm just like I'm anti like immigration like across the board. I mean, I guess maybe like in certain cases you might make exceptions, but like I would really I just don't like I said, it's more about the principle than anything else. I mean, obviously I'm assuming you hear me say is like, oh my god, RoseMulet's a racist piece of shit. It's like
No,
I don't see it that way.
I did the
But like
white and black nation just to be consistent.
well, I don't think it makes a difference. I think it's more about the principle that we need to solve our shit first before
Do
we
you,
let anyone
Can I
else.
ask?
before Sinthe, just as
Yeah,
a yes or no, do you think it's mutually exclusive that we can't take care of our own citizens better while also helping other countries and people from other countries?
Wait, who are you asking?
You.
Can you repeat the question?
Do you think it's mutually exclusive that we can either help people from other countries and like give them citizenship or refugee status or whatever they need, and to help our own citizens at the same time, or do you think we can't do both at the same time? Like, do you think we could give money to Ukraine and help our citizens at the same time? Like, why, from your point of view, would we have to stop giving money to Ukraine or Saudi Arabia and like all our other allies and people we want to help out in the world and immigrants?
Well, I think it's naive to ignore the fact that all of that foreign aid takes up a significant portion of the U.S. budget, and I feel like that portion of the U.S. budget could be better allocated if it went directly to the people in need of it most in our own country, and
Sure.
that if these countries have their own problems, they can fund that themselves.
Okay, I guess I'll toss over to Synth, because I'm not
Yep.
in the debate.
Sure. So, Rose, you said that we should be helping our own citizens, right? And not bringing in people from other countries. But it seems like the moderator was just saying, it's not just the case that people can do both, but one can do the other. Bringing people in from other countries can help the people here, right? Your families, you alluded earlier to the American dream, right? People coming to the U.S. and making something great for themselves and helping to do good for the rest of the country as they do so, right? I think that's a reasonable thing, a reasonable goal, right, for an immigrant to set for themselves. And I think it can be the case that an immigrant can come over here, and maybe they're not going to make it rich, right? I don't think it's going to be the case for most of them, but they can certainly help the people here. They're not a hindrance, they're a help, right? You can just look at them as more mouths to feed, right? If you want to look at the average American as just a mouth to feed. I don't, right? I think that the average American is capable of doing great things. They're capable of supplying other people with a lot of good. They do a lot more good than just like exist and eat food, right? I think that if we allow other people from other countries to come here, they can do the exact same thing the average American's doing, and they can help the average American to be better off than they would be without them.
I think that, like I said, and I admitted this before, in an ideal scenario, we would have immigration. And I think that they can help us, but there's also, like, you have to also, like, know that when people immigrate, like that doesn't happen right away. These people often like, you know, rely on like government support systems, or like it takes them a while for them to truly succeed. They struggle, and I think this is like an obvious fact, even liberals will acknowledge it. The people that immigrate from other countries, they struggle a lot more than the people that were naturally born here to like succeed. Like they have it worse off. Like their chances of really making it here are not as good. Okay, they're really
Not as good as what?
not as good as like the people who are born here. Like obviously, you know, to succeed, the people that are born here have an advantage. Not to say that people can't succeed.
I completely agree, but Rose, the issue is they're doing better here than they do in their home country, hence why they move, right? And they're not a hindrance to us. When we take a look at the broad economic effects of people coming to this country from other countries, it's not bad for us. It ends up being positive in every single reasonable metric.
I never said that it was bad. I just said that I think that we need to put a pause on it, because at this point, why are we accepting other people when we can't even support our own citizens? And it's like, it would be good for them.
Because one doesn't come at the cost of the other, Rose. This is both good for them and it's good for us.
I think it's more neutral for us. I mean, maybe there's some positives. I would just say that for the time being, and it's more about the principle than anything else. It really is. It's just the fact is, before we could accept immigrants, because our country was thriving, our country is suffering, and because of that, we really need to focus on what's important.
Do you think this...
Love for immigrants to be...
Isn't there a point to that principle?
I don't think it's responsible to have immigrants in our country.
Rose, isn't there a point to that principle?
To prioritize them first.
Isn't there a point to that principle?
Like, what do you mean?
Isn't there the point to that principle to make sure Americans have better lives?
Well, obviously, I want Americans to have better lives. Like, duh. Like that. We just...
That's the point. No, we don't. You just said it's about the principle, right? I'm telling you, this principle needs to have a point. If we both agree that the effects of immigrants are positive, and we agree that we want to have a positive effect on Americans, if immigrants do that, we should want immigrants in, unless there's some other thing that you care about more than making Americans' lives better. Like, maybe you think that this principle is so valuable that even if it makes Americans' lives worse, we should deprive them of having other people come into this country to help them out. Maybe there's some reason you believe that, but that wouldn't make any sense to me. It seems like the thing you care about is making Americans' lives better, and the way we do that isn't by cutting ourselves off from the rest of the world. It's by letting people come here to help us out, like they're doing.
We can no longer support our citizens, which is why we need to put a pause. If we can't support our citizens, and before we let people in this country, we need to figure our shit out. And as soon as we can figure out how to support our citizens, then we let the immigrants in. It's a pause while we readjust and focus on our situations, and then we can let the immigrants in. Maybe let more than we could have before. Like, I mean, this is just like,
so
we have problems to sort, and we need to sort them. And in order to sort them, we have to pause immigration for a bit. I don't think it's such a terrible thing to say.
No, it makes no sense to say. If you had a bunch of drinks in your fridge, right, that had expired, right? You have a bunch of expired drinks. They're not doing too well, so to speak, right? Would you say we need to cut off the tap water so we can, while we figure out what's going on with the drinks that are expired in my fridge? That makes no sense to me, right? Obviously, you want to get a supply, right, of people that can do labor, right? You want to get a good supply of people who can do labor. It's not the case that you want to cut them off because of the fact that you think there are problems here that the average American has.
As only laborers, huh? You only see them as laborers.
No, I see them as human beings, and you don't give a fuck about them, right? You don't care if we just push them off. All it does is good for them. You agree that it's good for them. They're coming here because they want to. They're doing that. America is a good country. It's a fundamentally good country. They want to come here because it's good, not because America sucks ass. Do you think they want to come here because their country's better?
No, our country is better currently, but
which is why they're coming here. You said you said that you care about them, and that's why you want to keep them out. It's better for them if they're here. I want to be around them. I want them to be around us. I want them to have good quality lives. I think it's wildly unpatriotic to have the outlook that you do.
Well, to do so. I don't care what's patriotic, honestly.
I thought you care about what's good for the average American.
I do.
Isn't that what patriotism is?
Hold on. I don't believe in patriotism the way that people do. I think that wanting to like pledge of allegiance, I think that's fascistic and I hate it. I think that like the war machine that we have, I'm very against it. All these things that people call patriotic, I'm not for those things. I'm not the typical patriot, as you would say, okay?
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about red, white, and blue or jingoism, right? Me and you both care about making average Americans' lives better. Patriotism is that, right? Patriotism is the valuing of people here, too, right? It's not the valuing exclusively of people here. It's understanding that we can do things that are good for Americans and then doing them. It's the case that we can do something that's good for Americans by letting these other people from other countries in. Cutting ourselves off from them does not benefit them. You're not helping them, right? And you know it, and I know it. And you're not helping the average American. All you're doing is saying, I have this principle, but the principle has a point, and you're ignoring the point when you talk about the principle.
Oh my god.
You want to move on to the next topic, Rose?
If you have a point you want me to respond to, let me know what you want me to respond to, because I can respond to it.
Go ahead.
Just said.
Can you repeat that?
I'm just saying that when it comes to people from these other countries, I think that when they come here, they bring a lot of good with them, right? And it's good for us, right? And it's good for them, which is why they want to come here. I don't think shutting ourselves off from them makes any kind of sense.
No, and I think that they have a potential to bring a lot of good. I absolutely do. However, I do also acknowledge that a lot of times, and in a lot of cases, not all cases, it can also be a drain. And a lot of times we're letting immigrants in out of our own goodwill. And I think it's the right thing to do. However, it's when we're suffering as a country and we're in these downfalls, we're in this inflation period. We can't afford to be charitable like this. We can't afford to be doing this in this current moment of time, which is why we need to be putting a pause for the time being. And with the goal obviously being, and I've never denied this, okay, I'm not anti-immigration, I'm pro-immigration, but for the time being, until we sort our shit out, pause immigration. We can't be, handing out spots in our country until we solve our problems. I mean, I don't think we're really going to get anywhere with this. We just disagree.
Okay. I think that the arguments I've made, Rose can repeat the same points over and over again. I think I've already addressed that. I don't think I need to repeat myself anymore. The audience has heard it. Rose understands the argument. I'm fine. Gami, if you want to, if there are questions you have as the moderator, or if you want to move on to the next topic, it's up to you.
I think I asked all my questions for this one, unless you guys have anything more you want to say on this matter.
I'm all good.
Rose?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so are femboys and drag queens transphobic, degenerate, or bad for society? If so, how, and how can you demonstrate such? Additionally, what is the moral harm in people giving informed consent to participating in either femboy or drag culture? For the purpose of this, we'll assume it's not sexualized in nature. So, like the
I can't hear you. Your audio is glitching right now.
Oh no.
Your audio is really bad. Like robotic. Unfortunately.
That happens sometimes. Oh.
Yeah, it's a little glitchy.
And no offense. Like before I respond, I want to hear your full statement. So it's kind of really unfortunate.
Let me get on my phone.
Oh, we can hear you now. You're finally coming through clear.
Are femboy and drag queens degenerate? If so, how? Also, are they transphobic?
I jinxed it.
Is caused by them exit. Oh no. Okay.
All right. You wanna get on phone, Gami?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
It's working. Oh my god.
So I think the question here is oh, it seems like Gami's hopping back in. I'll let her announce it.
Can you guys see me?
We can see you. We can.
Beautiful.
Can you hear me? Okay, let me get
Yeah.
my question. Are femboys and drag queens transphobic and or degenerate? If so, how? And what harm is caused in society by allowing such behaviors? Additionally, should drag or femboy behavior, however you define them, should it be illegal to display in public and or private?
Okay. I'll go first.
I'll
if
toss
that's
it
okay.
to Rose for this one because Sinthe
Yeah.
did the first.
Yeah, so I probably gave a better explanation in my other debates. If I knew which one to link, I would, but honestly, I've done so many, I can't keep track of them all. But I will say this, okay? When it comes to femboys and drag queens and all of this stuff, they're extremely harmful for many reasons. One, currently in society, most people do not know any trans people, and the trans people that we see in media are often very negative depictions. I would even argue, a lot of the transphobia that stems from culture can directly stem from, stereotypes that we see from drag culture, or even like femboys or like men dressing feminine, because that is what the average person is aware of. And there's a lot of talk in the LGBT community to deny this, to deny the harm that comes from quote unquote our own communities. In my honest opinion, I see it as blackface. I see it as you do not identify as a woman. You are really offensively putting on this clothing of a gender that you do not identify as. I think it's very important that we have clothing that is only for women and clothing that is only for men, because it just shows, like, if you're a trans woman, right, and let's say you don't pass super well, you just want to be able to go in the world and you want people to see you as a woman. There's a really important social utility here that I think needs to be addressed, and we need to like preserve, of having someone wear a dress or someone wear something really pink and like really girly, and like immediately just by the clothing, regardless of if this person passes or not, everybody automatically knows that this person is trying to present as female. Therefore, we don't have to put trans people in these awkward situations where they have to constantly be asked what their pronouns are. We have to constantly like make them feel uncomfortable or have them be misgendered, because fucking woke ass, fucking dumbass people like liberals are just going to constantly be like, calling everybody they them, when they only call trans people they them because they know cis people pass and they're fucking isolates them all the time. I can point to many instances where femboys promote like many like misconceptions, or it's like ignorant cis people just see them as all the fucking same, and or they'll just claim that they are the same or they're part of the community, or that we're fucking bigoted for calling them out. And it's like, listen, as a transgender woman who transitioned at age 14, I knew at 2 years old that I was a girl, and it was always very straightforward for me. I feel like my movement that I fought really hard for, to have basic fucking human rights and just to be seen as a normal woman, is now being overrun by crazy people who want to be seen as fucking freaks and weirdos, when I just want to be seen as a normal fucking girl. These are complete opposites of each other, and they do not have the same goals as me. They're putting on an offensive wig, an offensive performance. They're not being genuine to themselves. My genuine identity is more important than someone not being genuine, than someone just mocking the concept of gender role, just doing it for the fun of it. For Harry Styles wearing a fucking dress and getting praised. Meanwhile, actual trans people are getting killed on the streets because no one fucking cares about our struggles. But a cis man having the bravery to wear a fucking dress gets praised. I'm tired of this fucking bullshit, and it needs to stop. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
question before Sinthe goes.
No.
You compared it to blackface. If so, is all blackface the same, and why is it harmful? If it's like,
Thank you for asking, because I can clarify this. So there was a trend, and I have this on one of my YouTube videos, of people wearing blackface to quote unquote support Black Lives Matter. They would like paint one half of their face black, and they would put like the fucking like the fist pump of like the BLM thing. In their mind, they were doing it fully. They thought they were being supportive. They thought they were being, and I feel like that's like if blackface was allowed to evolve, that is what drag currently is today. There's a lot of delusional people, and even drag queens in their fucking confined spaces, they play into harmful stereotypes about women, and trans women specifically, and they fucking know it. They're not ignorant to this. They know it behind the scenes. Some of them are the most transphobic. I've had many negative experiences with gay men and drag queens who said some nasty shit like, "Oh, hun, we're all men in dresses anyway." It's like, "Oh, I'm a drag queen," or "She's a drag queen. She's prettier than you." And it's like, literally all the fucking time. I was in these communities against my own will. They would say shit like this to me, and all the fucking time they would say the most nastiest transphobic shit in the world, and then behind everyone be like, "Oh my god, yes, gay rights got passed, gay marriage got passed, oh yes, gay rights." And it's like, I'm tired of hearing them say all this shit. Meanwhile, they don't give a fuck about trans people. Like fucking Stonewall and all that shit. A trans woman was trying to get up on that stage, and they were told, like, no, they didn't want her to represent the movement. So many fucking gay people, so many fucking people supposedly part of our community, they don't want to associate with us. Like, I don't even know where to start. I'm sorry. I'm just really passionate about this.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna pass over to Sinthe, and I still have a third question for when you guys are done with this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll just drop my opening statement and go straight to asking you questions, right? I want to cut at the chase, right? I want to just be honest with you. It seems like what you're doing is pulling a lot from bad personal experiences you've had and using those to make a really broad generalization about a community of people, right? It seems like you personally have had some bad experiences with these people in the past. I understand that probably sucks, but you can't say because some subset you've had bad experiences with, the entire group must be bad. It's an awful way to collect data. It's not the way that you can have an accurate picture of a group of people.
Well, these are hundreds of people, though. What you understand is it's time and time again, over and over again. At some point, you just need to acknowledge reality and stop pretending because it's socially convenient for you to
You
do
don't.
so.
You have not talked. No, Rose. You don't have to lie to me. You have not been told. No. I know you have. Hold on. You haven't even heard what I'm saying, right? You have not talked to 100 people who have all told you as drag queens that you're all men in dresses with very specific phrase. That's a one event that happened to you. Maybe it's 2 at most. It's not the case. It's 100, right? Be honest with me.
Well, I'm specifically referring to like effeminate gay men or like people within that, like, and that includes like drag queens, femboys, or the fucking xenogenders on Twitter. If you include that fucking broad range of all those fucking people who have the same goal of like expanding the concept of gender and all that stuff, if you include all of those, like, I've been part of communities where they've all ganged up against me, where they've all like said all this fucking shit. I've had these people constantly over and over say like negative stuff to me, and at
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, you've had bad experiences with hundreds of these people. I'm sure that's true. But the kind of bad experiences you were talking about there are, you probably have the 3 examples you named. Maybe you have a bit more. You certainly don't have hundreds. I'm sure online there are a lot of people who don't like you who are femboys, because you see a lot of stuff that's kind of dickish about femboys, right? It's understandable that they might not like you though, right? Like, if I was going around saying racist shit, there would be a lot of black people who say things that are mean to me. It wouldn't mean that black people are bad.
Well, I would make a good comparison to this, and I would say, imagine you're a white kid, and then you're in a school full of like an all-black school, and you're the only white kid there, and then all the black kids in that school. Gammy, I can't take you seriously. If you're just gonna laugh at me, then I'm just gonna leave.
No, I'm sorry.
Then why are you laughing?
I'm looking at memes on my phone. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's whatever. So the point is, if you're the one white kid in an all black school and everyone there is ganging up against you, bullying you for your skin color, and saying the most awful shit to you, then I think that that person has the right to be racist. I think that that person is morally justified in being racist because their life experiences have taught them that all black people are evil, and they'll constantly have that time and time again. Now, I don't think that all black people are fucking evil, obviously, but if that person's racist, they shouldn't be fucking getting canceled on Twitter, being like, "Oh my god, this person's an awful person." That person deserves sympathy for all the awful.
Wait, hold on. Let's slow down really quick, Rose. Okay.
And that's me with gay people.
Whoa.
A bunch of black people rape someone. Give you the right to rape black people as a category.
Can we let I don't, whatever your name is,
Okay.
can you answer the question? You were gonna say
You didn't ask her question, right? But I'll go ahead and say what I was gonna say, right? Well, you did not. Okay. I'll go ahead and give you. But just to be super clear, you said you think that person is justified in being racist.
Absolutely.
Do you think that it's correct that all black people are evil? Do you actually think it's correct? Do you think it's wrong?
No, but in their experience, so first of all, the definition of prejudice is something that's not based in reality. For that person, it is absolutely based in reality. So that person is absolutely in the.
It isn't. It isn't based in reality. You said they hate all black people. You said they hate all black people, right? They went to one high school. All black people aren't at one high school. They wouldn't fit in one high school. Okay, it was not possible.
Everybody there that was black hated them and bullied them and singled them out for their skin color. They have a right to feel that way.
No, you don't. You don't have a right to think about. You don't have the right to think an objectively wrong claim because of the fact you have a bad experience with the group. You agree they're wrong. You agree they're incorrect. Can I just get you to say that a person who hates black people because they've had bad experiences with black people is wrong, Rose?
Well, I don't think it's right to hate black people, but in this rare specific case that probably only applies to like a handful of people on the planet, I say that these people are justified in being
Rose,
racist.
no, that wouldn't apply to a small handful of people. That would give me justification to be racist, right? I went to an all-black school, right? There are a lot of kids who didn't like me on the basis of my race. Not every single one, of course, but there were a lot, right? And that's going to happen almost anywhere you go because there's a lot of fucking racial tension in the U.S., right? Racism is not dead in the U.S.
That's actually really funny that you mentioned that because I've actually been saying this as an example for a long time, and I had no clue about that about you. So that's really interesting.
I went to school in Clayton County, Georgia. You can look up the racial demographics if you want. The school will be representative of that, right? It was the middle school I went to. However, yeah. So in the case of this, it's not the fact that you had a bad experience with a group of people. It's not justification to hate them, because they've also had good experience with a group of people. And if you just cut yourself off from a group because some of the members have given you some kind of bad experience, it's never going to be the case that you ever get to see a good experience from these people. You're cutting off an entire group. Do you think the trauma responses are rational?
I think it's completely valid.
That's not what I asked. I asked you if you think it's rational.
It doesn't matter if it's rational.
It's crucial to this discussion if it's rational.
You know, if in this person's case, I would say it is rational.
You do think it's rational?
Based on this person's experiences, yeah.
You think it's rational for them to hate all black people because a subset of the group they've had trouble with?
Because every single black person it's a bunch of. I think it's a completely fair observation for that person to make.
Okay.
I don't think it's representative of reality. But
I think this is
experiences alone. I think that's a completely fair conclusion. I think people should be more sympathetic to people in those situations.
I think being sympathetic to a person is very different from supporting the relatively irrational notions that are going on in their head because of their bad experiences. I think that's not how you help people with a trauma response. You don't help them by backing up their trauma response. If anything, the kind of thing that you do to help people with that specific trauma response, the only thing that could possibly make sense there is going to be exposure therapy. It's going to be getting out there and talking to these people who are black, who aren't going to be negative towards you, right? And there are plenty of them. The vast majority of black people will not hate you, Rose, right? The vast majority of black people are going to be completely okay with you. Most people are good, of all races, right? Most people are good.
Well, again, this is a hypothetical scenario. I did not go to an all-black school, although I did go to a really racially diverse school for a private school. That's another interesting story, but that's not the point. The point is, I forgot what I was going to say. Fuck.
I'll tie it back in, right? Just to remind us of where we are, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking about, this was in relation to an analogy about femboys, right? You said that you've had bad experiences with some group of them online, and so you think it's rational for you to hate this entire group. And the bullet that you had to bite on that was a relatively crazy one about having a bad experience at an all-black school and hating all black people, right? That seems like a big leap. It's clearly not rational, right? You agreed, you said after kind of moving back and forth a bit, you said that it was in fact rational, right? Do you think that if it could be the case that person is wrong for hating all black people, right? They're incorrect for it, even though maybe their experience would inform them that all black people are evil, right? You agree it's not true, right? You agree they're wrong for that, but you for some reason you don't understand that your experience could also be incorrect, right? It could be misinformed.
Well, their truth, to them, that's their truth, and I feel like they have the right to feel that way. And I feel like that's the thing that people I know my experience. I had for people years saying that I'm this fucking bigot when it's all I did is I had this experience with a negative group of people that people fucking gave me so much shit for. It's people don't understand. People saw me say certain things and thought that I was this fucking bigot. When it's no, you don't understand that I was just bullied and harassed by this group of people. And I can't even fucking talk about the shit. Or people are shit about me, a fucking trans woman, when I was the fucking victim of the situation, when I was the one being harassed by these people. But it's they don't give a shit. So yeah, this is
from their perspective,
it's very personal.
Rose. From their perspective, it seems like you're shitting on them, and so they're justified in retaliating against you. And then you're saying I'm retaliating to their retaliation. That doesn't get you anywhere, right? Two wrongs don't make a right. This is why people say it. It just makes things worse, way worse over time.
The reason I make this analogy is because these are people who have abused me. I don't even want to get into detail at all the ways, and all the shit they've done to me. Because honestly, if you're gonna do this, I just want to fucking leave the call because it just reminds me of all the shit that I had to go through. And it's I know you don't know the situation that I've been through. I understand, right? You couldn't possibly know what I've been through. But if you're just gonna say it's all my fault for all the shit that I had to go through, knowing that all the fucking sexual abuse I had to deal with, all the fucking transphobia, people not seeing me as I can't even be on
Rose
anymore. I can't be a part of this call. I can't. I fucking can't.
I have no idea where that came from, right?
Because
go ahead, come.
Story.
I know. This is nothing to do with the thing that I just brought up.
Do you guys think maybe taking a 5-minute breather would help?
If you want, I think this is I think we can end the stream.
I don't want be told that it's my fucking fault.
Rose, do you want to?
I had to go through.
Rose, do you want to cut? Rose, do you want to cut the call?
And then all the fucking trauma response that I had.
Rose, do you want to cut stream?
I'm sorry. I'm just done. I'm just done.
All right, I'll cut stream for you.
No, it's.
All right, you guys,